And how all of a sudden am I supposed to say that when the struggles of life and the difficulties of life come, that's the time of joy? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And yet, how do you know if you have joy? If someone would ask you, are you a joyful person? And you'll probably say, well, yeah, I am. How do you know? I would propose to you that the only way you can know if you are a joyful person is when that joy is challenged by the struggles and the difficulties of life, and you maintain joy. If joy is not challenged, if joy is not tested, then I would suggest you don't really know if you are a joyful person. In John 15 and verse 11, Jesus said to his disciples, "These things I speak to you, that my joy may remain in you, and that your joy will be full." Jesus lived a life of joy. And he wants us to have within us the same joy of life that he had. Now I ask, how do I know that Jesus had a joyful life? How do I know that Jesus was a man of joy? May I suggest to you it was because he was tested. He was tried. He faced the difficulties and the struggles. And this verse of Hebrews 12, 1 and 2 is about that struggle. And it is about his struggle to give us a lesson about our struggle. If you open to that passage in Hebrews chapter 12, those first two verses, which by the way, if you want to read ahead, we're going to go verses 3 through 12 or through 11 tonight. It's in the same section, it all fits together. But right now, if you look at Hebrews 12, 1 and 2, you're going to notice, I think, at least two images of struggle in this text. The first one is a race. Now, if you've ever run in a race at all, doesn't matter if it had great consequences or if it was just one of your brothers or your sister or maybe a friend, and you're just trying to race to that place right over there. It was a struggle. Now, can you imagine you are involved in a race, and before you start the race, to compete in the race, they hand you a 50-pound weight pack that you have to put on your back. Number two, they tell you, while you are running, you don't know where they are, but there are these traps have been set. You might fall in a hole over there. You might get hit with something that comes flying out of nowhere. You don't know where they are. And here's the best one, the toughest one. You know there's a finish line, but we're not going to tell you when you get there. Now that doesn't seem fair. How can anybody run a race like that? The Hebrew writer said, all these people in chapter 11, they did it. He begins this text saying, look at those witnesses that we just talked about in Hebrews 11, and look at all of the things that they endured. And then he says, now you run the race as well. What kind of race is it? It's a race weighted down. It's a race that you have to lay aside every weight. But that's so hard to do. It's a race that says, you get so trapped and so ensnared from time to time. And yet you have to keep running. And it's a race that you must run with endurance. We're running a race. And the weight of sin constantly is nagging at us and weighing us down. And he is saying, set those things aside, even though it's difficult. Because you're going to get ensnared by various traps that have been set by the one that you know is out to get you. But just keep going. Endure to the end. You know that there is an end. You just don't know when you're going to get there. It might be today. It might be tomorrow. It might be 20 years from now. But the end of your race is coming. It's a struggle. Don't quit. The second struggle listed in this text is the cross. And the text says that Jesus saw the cross and he endured it. Dave talked about it in class this morning, and I want to ask this question. Have you ever wondered why it had to be a cross? Why was it not stoning? Why was it not a sword? Why was it not hanging? It was a cross. The cross has always been the symbol of final humiliation. Not only is it the humiliation of hanging displayed without clothes for everyone there to see, but it was the display of everybody mocking and laughing. The Romans used it better than anybody else, apparently. And as Dave told us this morning, it was intended only for the worst of people and the slaves and the criminals, and as a deterrent that you watch this and you're going to stay in line. But what's fascinating to me that I had never thought of before, God talked about it with his people. In Deuteronomy 21 and verse 22, before they went into the promised land, God said these words. And if anyone commits a crime worthy of death and you put him to death and hang him on a tree, his body shall be buried that same day. For cursed is anyone who hangs on the tree. The children of Israel crucified? No. But here's what they did do. Here's what was done. When the people went into the promised land in Joshua 8 and in Joshua 10, they encountered people in Ai in chapter 8, and they hung on a tree the king of Ai after they had killed him. In chapter 10, they had 5 Amorite kings that they attacked, and hung on a tree. But both times Joshua said, at sunset we take the bodies off. Because God said, cursed is anyone who hangs on a tree. And the figure of the tree is the figure of saying, look and remember, this person was a criminal. They deserved to die. And even though the bodies were displayed, they were not killed by the crucifixion. The Romans, thou took it and made a lot out of it. And it became their weapon of punishment and deterrent. It was a curse to the whole people if the land was cursed by allowing, as he spoke about, the bodies to hang so long that they are consumed by vultures or decay. God said, no, we're not doing that. It has been stated that by hanging the body on a tree between heaven and earth showed that this person has been abandoned by both and unworthy of neither, or unworthy of either of them. Can't have them. What a horrible thing. What a horrible struggle. And yet this text says, you look to Jesus during your time of struggle. What? You look to Jesus when you have a struggle. Verse 2, looking to Jesus because of who he is. The author and the finisher of our faith. He devised faith, and he completed all of faith when he endured the cross, forever condemning, forever stating, sin and its master has been defeated, and I am the winner. Who for the joy of the cross endured it, despising the shame. He went through the process. And though the shame was awful, our Lord endured it. And you can even see the figure of Jesus, as was the custom of the Romans, to take the crossbeam and place it on the shoulder of the accused and make the accused carry that crossbeam to the place of the crucifixion. Looking to Jesus to hear his words when he said, Matthew 16:24, and whoever does not take up his cross and follow after me cannot be my disciple. Looking to Jesus because of where he is. He is sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. His race completed. His weight gone. The traps finished. And the Hebrew writer says, when you have struggles, probably not anything like his, you look to him. Because third, he looked beyond the cross. Yes, he told his disciples, I go to Jerusalem and I'm going to be killed by the rulers there. He knew it was coming. It was prophesied. And even on the cross, he yelled the words, "It is finished." Because all the prophecies about it were now complete. But Jesus, though looking at the cross, was actually looking beyond it. Who, for the joy set before him, he looked past the cross to see the joy. And it was the joy that allowed him to endure the struggle. The joy lessened the weight of the cross. We have a phrase for that. He ain't heavy. He's my brother. Saying that no matter the weight, I'll carry it because he's my brother. And the joy that helped him go through the struggle lessened the weight of what he felt. Number two, the joy of the cross, beyond the cross, heightened the meaning of the cross. It's always stood as a symbol of death, but Jesus heightened it. It becomes a symbol of glory and honor. And it was the joy beyond the cross that negated the intended effect of the cross. Look, there's your leader, King of the Jews. Don't you think the Romans thought, and the Jewish leaders particularly thought, that picture, that image will drive people away from him? They won't want him anymore. But by facing the struggle with joy, Jesus negated their intended effect. You know why? Because Jesus did not focus on what the cross would do to him, but he focused on what the cross would do for us. That's the joy of the cross. We're going to try something here. I hope the camera works to do what we intend. We'll see. But I ran across this earlier, and I just thought it was really cool. So we'll see if this works at all. You know, the problem with the cross, or the thing about the cross, Dave mentioned this morning, that it was both the Jews and the Romans who killed him. But you know and I know that there's even more behind it. The cross has been a problem for some people because they say, how do you follow a person who died on a cross like that? What is it about the cross that's so important? Well, I'll tell you what it is here in a moment. This is really cool because Jesus took care of the situation. Now, I'm hoping this will show up there. We'll see if this works. It was the intention that the cross be the crowning point of hell. That was the intention. Can it be seen? Yeah, almost. The crowning point for the cross was the victory of hell. But the truth of the matter is that the cross was the victory over hell. Satan thought he'd won, but he lost. And Jesus conquered death. Today, we're in a race. It's a race that's going to end in death, unless Christ returns. Today and tomorrow, we will remember Tom Brown. But Tom now knows what it means to conquer death. Here's the question. In your race, are you ready? You don't know when the end's coming, but are you ready? Recently, we've immersed 2 special people into Christ. Special because they're God's children. We can do the same with you because these 2 men believe in Jesus and they repented of sins, confessed His name, and they were immersed into Christ for the forgiveness of sins. You can have the same to face your struggle of life. But sometimes the struggle of life beats us down, and we need people to stand alongside us. Today, if we can help you, we're ready. Jesus is ready while we stand and sing together.
This is